We all created physical prototypes of our ideas for extension in the next 100 years, and so we'll kind of describe verbally what we created. We created a two-way street that sends information from the community to the university and then also in reverse, with demonstrated knowledge in mutually informing each partner. And we also had what we called a spiral of iterative experimentation that ran back and forth between our problems that were not equitable or sustainable and then our sort of desired future that was sustainable and equitable. And we were kind of demonstrating progress using actual good judgment and decisions to move ourselves toward a more healthy and sustainable future. I think those were some of that was it. Yeah.
Do we have enough easels up there? Here we go.
Sure. My subgroup was working on the question of how will extension, as we reconsider it, interact with the university itself, and what kind of things would be important in that case. We also made a physical prototype, just like the other groups. Our prototype was trying to show how, as the university becomes more and more public engaged, how extension could be at the core of that and be a place where units that are interested in public engagement can go and collaborate, and we can bring those ideas to communities. So our prototype really had like a physical foam core, and it had all kinds of nodes connected to that, which were Play-Doh balls and little strings and things like that. Some of the balls were kind of lost in the weeds. They were representing maybe units that don't do a lot of public engagement. We also had a sweeper that was sweeping things in the university up into the community. At the center of our foam core was a spring, a nice big white spring with a person on top. Well, it was a plastic representation of a person, really. That we're trying to use the university resources through extension to spring them forward or spring them up to the heavens or wherever they're headed, someplace good. So that's what we had, and what's that? Good and sparkly. That's where they're headed, someplace good and sparkly. So thank you.
Our group was the other team that was dealing with the same question that had to do with the future of extension in the context of an ever-engaging university. And we started by identifying some of our unique contributions, why extension exists. And we identified things like our relationships, the fact that we're on the ground everywhere in the state. We have relationship building skills, process skills, or content expertise. We're nimble and flexible and adaptable. And we wanted to put all that to use over the next 100 years, and basically said that our future would be one that would enhance the research and the teaching activities of the University of Minnesota by leveraging those relationships for the university broadly, enhancing the rigor and relevance of research and teaching through modeling and teaching about community engagement, and then applying our deep expertise to be the university's truth grounders, meaning that we would be, on behalf of the university, the folks that would help the public understand what's BS and what's good, hard evidence. So we were trying to make this into another prototype, and we came up with a description of that, which was that the extension of the future is an interdependent system of communities and the academy that honors multiple ways of knowing, experience, and expertise of all. And what our prototype looked like was making use of Play-Doh, again, as nodes, connecting using Q-tips and those plastic ties and that sort of thing, sort of making this big system and network. And the idea was that The nodes could be all sorts of things. They could be extension, they could be the university, they could be community organizations, funders, expertise, experiences, knowledge, et cetera. The things connecting them, the Q-tips and the ties, were sort of two-way pathways of knowledge and action. We had things that were sort of looped off at the end to demonstrate that there was this self-generating sort of infinite loop kind of thing, that the system folded back, inner and outer directed on itself. There were nodes and connectors scattered around the table that were the to be connected. Everything wasn't quite neat yet, it was to be connected. And we were purposeful in not trying to create sort of the university or extension sort of at the core, or, you know, the center of the universe. We were trying to create the system that essentially was, it wasn't flat because it was three-dimensional, but it was egalitarian, put it that way.
Another one?
All right, we didn't get the memo to bring our Post-it boards.
Okay.
So I was in charge of, a member of the team that was Team 3, which represented extension in a global, international context. And so we identified a few things that we thought were really important to that process. And a couple of those were that we were really integral to partnerships. We were able to create partnerships and keep partnerships, and that was a part of what gave us resilience over time. So we were able to do our mission historically. Going forward, we integrated some of those ideas into our model, our 3D representation. And in that representation, we included ideas from the globe. All across the globe would go through a filter. They'd be a little rough on their way in. They'd come out malleable and improved. And then those would be filtered through a place that could give them that sense of having respectability or having certainty. So like a university, like the UN, like in traditional knowledge bases, somewhere that could give them credibility. And then from there, they would go out and they would be communicated out to the world through a mountain range, which had issues and ideas of resiliency and redundancy. And then it would go into, we had a really nice place that had trees and a river and canoeing and water. And that's where we're hoping that people would congregate, near the natural resources, near the water and food resources of the world. And then those people would interact and connect with themselves, utilizing those ideas, and then starting anew. As challenges and issues came up, then new ideas would be created. Those would then go through the filter, go through the institutions that could create credibility, and then repeat. And so it would go around like that, including the ideas from around the world.
Thank you very much.
And we as well didn't bring up our sheet, but David volunteered to do interpretive dance. So we were responding, thank you, we were responding to a question that is the same as the one that Kathy is holding up about an extension meeting the needs of people. And it actually was a very similar structure. So we created a prototype that sort of looked like two wheels with an axle in between, but there were funnels on either end. And the idea is that extension is a two-way conduit between communities and the resources, the science, technology, and research aspects of the university. And that they're in between, at the heart of what we do in extension is really the process. And there's, in our representation of it, there was a sort of a two-layer embedded spiral that the first was looking at the needs and really the inequities that we're seeing in communities. And the second was looking at the assets and the opportunities, keeping our work asset-based. So embedded into that two-way spiral was also an element that was sort of taking the temperature of a community, or always taking a read on the wellness of a community, and filled with sort of little colorful bubbles that represented the diversity of the programs and the people and the constituents that we reach out to in our programming.